The boy's story began in the quiet corridors of a public hospital, where his first cry echoed without anyone there to celebrate it. He had been left shortly after birth, swaddled in a thin blanket, with scars running along his tiny body. Marks that nurses whispered about but never fully explained. Some said they were from a difficult birth. Others believed he had survived an accident. Whatever the cause, they became the first thing people saw whenever they looked at him. From there he was transferred to an orphanage. At first he was just another baby among dozens, yet as time passed and adoption days came and went, the difference became clear. Families came with bright eyes and hopeful hearts, searching for the perfect child. They would smile at him, sometimes even pick him up, but their gazes always lingered too long on the scars. And then, with polite words and forced smiles, they moved on to other children. By the time he was 6, he had learned the cruel rhythm of rejection. He would watch his friends pack their few belongings, hug him goodbye, and leave with new parents. Each farewell etched a new wound inside him, one no scar could show. "Why not me?" he would whisper into the darkness of his dormitory bed. But the silence never answered back. He grew into a thoughtful boy, quiet but observant. He carried his scars like a shield, pretending not to care, but deep down he longed for something simple. Someone who would look at him and see a child, not a reminder of pain. On playground days, when families visited, he often sat in the corner drawing with a stubby pencil. He would glance up, hopeful, each time footsteps approached. Yet time and again, disappointment followed. The caretakers at the orphanage loved him in their own way, but they could not replace what he was missing. They would say things like, "Your family will come one day," though their eyes betrayed doubt. Even they knew how many times he had been overlooked. For every child adopted, his hope dimmed a little more. But what if someone someday could see past those scars? What if love wasn't blind but simply brave enough to look deeper? And just when the boy was beginning to believe he would spend his entire life without a family, something extraordinary was about to happen. As the boy entered his teenage years, the weight of solitude grew heavier. His scars had become a permanent part of him, stretching and shifting as his body grew taller and leaner. But while he had learned to live with them physically, emotionally they were harder to bear. He knew what people saw when they looked at him. Something broken, something damaged. And after years of hearing whispers and seeing hesitant smiles, he started to believe it himself. The orphanage was his entire world. He had his routines, waking up early, helping the younger children tie their shoes, sneaking bread to the little ones who were still too shy to ask for more at dinner. He had become a caretaker of sorts despite his own aching emptiness. The caretakers admired him for his gentle nature, calling him an old soul in a young body. Still, when the lights went out at night, the ache returned. He would press his fingers against the ridges of his scars and wonder if they were the reason he was unworthy of love. There were moments, however, when he allowed himself to dream. Sometimes he pictured a mother's hand ruffling his hair, or a father teaching him how to ride a bike. On rainy days, he would sit by the window and imagine someone waiting for him at home with warm food and a soft smile. Dreams like these gave him comfort, but they also made reality harder to face. Because every time a family came to the orphanage and walked past him, those dreams shattered like fragile glass. He often asked himself difficult questions. If families only want perfect children, does that mean I don't deserve one? Am I too broken to be loved? These thoughts clung to him, growing darker with each year. He learned to lower his expectations, to smile politely even as he watched friends leave with families who had chosen them. By 15, he had almost stopped hoping. Adoption at that age was rare, and he knew it. The younger children were always the first to be chosen. He had started to prepare himself for a life where the orphanage would be his only home. Yet deep inside, a tiny spark refused to die completely. It flickered whenever he saw acts of kindness, whenever someone treated him like more than his scars. And it was that fragile spark, that stubborn whisper of hope, that would soon be answered in a way he never could have imagined. Because one day, when he least expected it, 2 strangers would walk into his life, and they would see not his scars, but the beauty he had carried all along. It was a gray afternoon when the couple arrived at the orphanage. They weren't the kind of people who turned heads when they entered a room. No grand gestures, no polished smiles like the families he had seen before. They walked hand in hand, speaking softly to each other, their eyes carrying both warmth and a hint of quiet determination. The boy barely noticed them at first. He was sitting in his usual corner, sketching with a pencil on a scrap of paper, drawing trees and skies he had never actually seen outside the orphanage walls. Families often ignored him, so he had trained himself not to expect anything different. But when he glanced up, he caught the woman's eyes. Unlike the others, she didn't look away. She held his gaze, not with pity, not with hesitation, but with something else. Curiosity, maybe even tenderness. The couple was shown around by one of the caretakers, introduced to children who ran forward eagerly, laughing and showing their best smiles. But instead of joining the small crowd, the woman tugged gently at her husband's sleeve and pointed to the boy sitting alone. They walked toward him. "Hello?" the man said kindly, lowering himself so their eyes met. "What are you drawing?" The boy hesitated, clutching the paper close. He wasn't used to strangers wanting to know about him. Still, after a long pause, he turned the sketch around to show them. It was a tree with strong roots and branches reaching out in all directions. "It's beautiful," the woman whispered, her eyes shining. "Just like you." The boy blinked, unsure he had heard correctly. Nobody had ever said that to him before. Not once. Over the next hour, the couple didn't try to charm him with promises or gifts. They simply sat with him, asking about his favorite books, his favorite foods, what he dreamed of doing when he grew up. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Not for his scars, but for his soul. When the couple left that day, he didn't allow himself to hope. Families had shown interest before, only to vanish after a few days. But something about them lingered in his heart. Their voices, their gentle smiles, the way they listened. And then, days later, the caretakers called him into the office. His hands trembled as he sat down, bracing himself for disappointment. Instead, he heard the words he had longed for all his life. "They want to adopt you." For a moment he thought he had misheard. His heart pounded, his throat tightened, and tears stung his eyes. The couple, the same couple who had looked at him and seen something beautiful, wanted him. But adoption was not the end of his story. In fact, it was only the beginning. Because even with love, the boy would soon face new battles, learning to trust, fighting against his fears, and confronting a world that still judged him by his scars. The first weeks in his new home felt like stepping into another world. The boy had never seen so many books lined neatly on shelves, or a kitchen that smelled of fresh bread every morning. His new room had soft blankets, bright curtains, and a desk where he could draw without worrying that someone would tear his paper. It should have felt like a dream, but instead, it felt terrifying. Every kindness from his new parents sparked doubt inside him. When they tucked him in at night, he lay awake wondering if one wrong move would make them send him back. When they praised his drawings, he worried they would change their minds once they noticed his scars again. Years of rejection had carved deep grooves of fear in his heart, and trust was not something that bloomed overnight. The couple understood. They didn't push him. When he flinched at a hug, they gave him space. When he grew quiet at dinner, they filled the silence with gentle conversation rather than questions. Slowly, their patience began to chip away at the walls he had built around himself. Still, the outside world was less forgiving. At school, some classmates pointed at his scars, whispering cruel words. "Monster," one boy muttered under his breath in the hallway. Those words stung worse than any wound. He came home one day with tears burning his eyes, asking his adoptive parents, "Why did you even choose me? Everyone else just sees what's wrong with me." His new mother knelt down, holding his face in her hands. "We didn't choose you because you're perfect. We chose you because you're you. And that's more than enough." Those words stayed with him. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave him something stronger than he had ever known. Belief that love could exist beyond appearances. Over time, he began to laugh more, share his drawings proudly, and even let himself be hugged without hesitation. The boy still had battles to fight, but he was no longer fighting them alone. And with each passing day, he started to see what his parents had seen all along, that his scars did not define him. They were simply part of a story that was far from over. Because soon that story would take a powerful turn, one that would not only change his life but also inspire countless others who carried scars of their own. Years passed, and the boy grew into a young man. His scars remained, but they no longer felt like chains. Instead, they became symbols of survival, proof that he had endured pain, rejection, and loneliness, yet still found a way to rise. With the unwavering support of his adoptive parents, he pursued the passions that had once been his quiet escape. His sketches turned into full paintings, his notebooks filled with stories, and eventually, he began to share his art with the world. To his surprise, people weren't repelled by his scars. They were moved by the beauty of what he created. His work spoke of resilience, of love, of hope beyond suffering. But his greatest work wasn't on paper. It was in the way he chose to live. He visited orphanages, sitting down with children who carried the same shadows he once had. He told them his story, not to erase their pain, but to show them that scars, whether visible or hidden, could lead to something greater. "You are not broken," he would say. "You are proof of strength." His parents often watched these moments with tears in their eyes. They had once been the only people who saw his beauty, and now the world could see it too. The boy who no family wanted had become a man who gave hope to many. Looking back, he realized something profound. Love had not erased his scars, but it had transformed their meaning. What once felt like a curse had become a testimony. His story became a reminder that family is not defined by perfection nor by blood, but by the courage to love without conditions. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. True beauty can never be measured by appearances. It is found only in the heart. This story reminds us that love has the power to heal wounds that the eye cannot see. If you believe scars are not flaws but signs of strength, share this video and leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful adoption stories that inspire hope and love.